a lot. Management at Narsee Monjee. And this is one of the top university and business school in India. He has written a pioneering book titled Ethical Management based on Indian value system. And this is it's my experience. This is a very good book, which you will find that this is missing in other books. But yes, in his book, we will find the minor things of how to do this value management with the concept, with the Indian context. His article, Value-Based Management, has nearly 8.3 million views on the internet, and an article on Building a Caring Society, which has more than 3 million views. And he's one of the most famous book is Discover the Arjuna in You, which is published by Jaico Publisher. And this book is very well available in Amazon and airport and other bookshops. And I think one must read this book to be motivated and to give motivations to others. And that's what he is practicing in the real life. Professor Mode was given a Devang Mehta Award for outstanding contribution to the education in 2014. And he was named among 100 most influential directors in India at the World Education Congress 2016 in Mumbai. And I'm very hopeful that many more records still are there in lineup, which Dr. Mode is going to break, and making this institute is a world famous institute. So welcome, Dr. Mode, again to share your experience and knowledge with our faculty who have joined from all parts of country. Welcome you again. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Nisha Pandey, and thanks once again for selling my book, Discover the Arjuna in You in Ethical Management. I hope some of them listen to you and buy my book. So, okay. As Professor Nisha Pandey mentioned, 4 or 5 years back, when we started looking for identifying our institute and identifying our institute with some niche areas, that how do we actually work in areas which are still untouched in the field of management. So in 2014, we had already started business analytics program, which was one of the earliest business analytics program in any management institute in the country. And then we were looking for something which will touch the society and the community. And as a experiment, we started this meeting for social entrepreneurs. And you will be surprised to know that this was done under the banner of Women Development Cell. And we invited a lot of women entrepreneurs who were doing some work in the field of social entrepreneurship and social business. And then that was quite a motivating factor, listening to all those women who were doing this work. So we started this social entrepreneurship seminars every year. And we got fascinating response from various NGOs and some private universities, some IITs, some faculties from IIMs. And that encouraged us to further develop the subject of social entrepreneurship. So this is in nutshell the history, that why we are here with a 5 days program on social entrepreneurship. Basically, I am a PhD in strategic management, and I have a kind of strategic thinking built into me. And that's what I did in Air India in last 5-10 years, writing the turnaround plan for Air India. Of course, it was not very successful, but still it contributed in at least keeping it afloat. So the same kind of thinking was used. Some people's mic is on. So we use the same thinking in Vivekananda Education Society Institute of Management, and we can see the turnaround. So the same kind of strategic thinking now I am trying to apply in social entrepreneurship. And you will find some ideas which have already been discussed in last yesterday and today. And maybe some of these ideas you will listen again in next 2-3 days. But here I am putting those ideas in a strategic perspective. So let us see how it goes. So in social business or social entrepreneurship, the biggest question is, what is it that you really want to achieve? Until unless we have an answer to this particular question, whatever we are doing, whether we are doing a normal business or whether we are in the field of social entrepreneurship, we will never be clear. Sometimes people want to do social work with profit motive, and many a times people earn profit and have a huge social motive. And we can see examples all around us. But we should be somewhere very clear that what is it we are working for. And if we have the answer for this particular question, we will have clearly laid out plans that how we are going to do that and what results we will get. Results will come automatically. You don't have to work for that. As long as your method is clear, your process is clear, your thinking is clear, you will get the results. So this you already know that social enterprise is a kind of alternative economy. Why I am calling it alternative economy, or many people who are writing on social enterprises calling it an alternative economy, because since the economic theory developed in last 200-300 years, and the field of management is an offshoot of those economic thinking, there was always motive for profit. How to run an organization, how to make people more productive, how to increase efficiency. They talk about a value chain, that from some place you bring all resources together and use your financial resources and technology to create a product. And when you are talking about a product in the value chain, you are looking at minimizing the cost of developing that product and manufacturing that product. Similarly, in the distribution and when you reach to the customer, in your marketing, and finally delivering and after sales service, this is a complete value chain of a product which you use in an economy. Like if I give an example, I was working with Air India. So there are, when we look at the value chain in an organization like Air India, what is the basic minimum from where you have to start? And when you look at the customer process, the value chain starts right from the moment a person has a need to travel and that person calls up an airline office. So from that moment onwards, till that person books the ticket, has a perfect experience of on-time performance, and then a safe flight, and then again finding his baggage in time, and then getting out of the airport, and then getting into a taxi, and then he reaches his or her destination. That is a process where you have to focus completely, and you have to see that in each and every activity where that person is in touch with the airline, that person has a very good experience. Then only there will be a repeat of that experience for your economy. And if you look at the product is the aircraft where passengers actually sit and they fly. So for an aircraft, that product, for an airline, the product starts the moment you start thinking of a route, a particular route where you are going to fly, whether it is a 2-hour route or 4-hour route or 12-hour route or 16-hour route. Currently, you saw San Francisco to Bengaluru, 17 hours flight over the polar region. So when you start looking at from within the processes, then you start looking at the route and the kind of aircraft, the technology, and the yield per kilometer, 80 km, and all those things kick in, and then you design strategies for that. So why I am giving you these two examples is that whether the same model of creating a strategy for an alternative economy where there is no market-based solutions, whether we can use those techniques for creating a strategy for social enterprises. Yesterday, in one of the sessions, Professor Sahai mentioned that you may be surprised to know that there are more than 2 million social enterprises working successfully in our country. And that figure is just an estimate. There could be more. So, and they are operating in an environment where there is no professional help available. Some of them may be having professional help, but many of them may not have professional help, and they are doing it out of their passion and to solve some problem of the society which they have come across. And out of that passion, they are working in that direction. But now the time has come to structure these social enterprises and provide a professional help how we run those social enterprises successfully. Because these social enterprises, once we find a solution, as you can see it on the slide, I am saying that they can spearhead disrupting models to solve burgeoning social problems. We have a number of social problems, and until unless we use disruption in the economic system, business people are not going to look at those issues and invest in them. So there has to be an initiative by social enterprises and disrupt the current businesses in such a way that they start focusing on these social issues and social problems, and they design product and processes. So I will directly get into the nitty-gritty of developing strategies for social enterprises. So what are the challenges of social enterprises? The first and foremost is lack of funding support. There is no mechanism even today in our financial system that a person wants to start some business where he or she is trying to solve a social problem, as well as there is a product available and easy financing is available. Yesterday, Professor Yunus mentioned a very important point, that our financial system is designed, our banking system is designed for those people who already have money and they can borrow money at good leverage. And those who don't have money, they are always left out of the system and they don't get money. Or if they get money at a very high cost. Even these NBFCs or microfinancing companies who are working in this field, they are charging huge interest, which is much more than the cost of financing for a normal business. I was talking to a microfinance organization, which was a cooperative kind of organization based in Dharavi. They have more than 15,000 women members of that finance operation. And I was talking to them that how to ensure flow of funds and what happens when those funds are not returned, and what is the percentage of people who are not paying back that money. Maybe they borrowed money and they could not succeed. So that person responded to me by saying that what you are saying is the biggest problem in microfinancing companies or women bachat gut, which we are having across the nation. There are many women bachat gut. And somewhere along the way, many of them collapse because if 10 to 15% people are not able to pay back their money, there is a constraint, there is a problem in the flow of funds. and the whole thing collapses. So they told me that as a strategy, the whole operation is insured. They say that the maybe the cost of insurance is little higher, and there are not many insurance companies who are willing to insure this kind of risk. They will say that this is a high risk lending, but they say that this insurance does not come from any insurance company. They say that we assume that 10% of people who are borrowing money will not return the money. They may not be in a position to return the money. So we charge 10% charge on the money which we are lending. And that is a kind of insurance, and it is very, very successful. They say that not a single person has lost money in this NBFC Women Bachat Gat operation. So this funding is one of the biggest challenge, and you will have to find your own innovative solution. And why government is not thinking of ensuring this kind of lending to be insured so that they don't get into trouble? Maybe Reserve Bank of India is looking into now cooperative banks, but this whole business of NBFC and Bachat Gat is open for risk. So the biggest challenge is lack of funding support. The second challenge these social enterprises face is ability to scale up. You have something very good in hand, you have a very good solution, and you are maybe providing support to some 50, 100 households, or maybe a village or 10 villages. And when you want to scale up, you really don't know how you are going to scale up the operation to cover a larger geographical area or demographic area. So in this session, we will look at some scaling up strategies for social businesses. The third is the duality of mission. Normally, a business focuses on increasing the economic value of their business, that is profit and EBITDA and all those terms which are applicable in normal business. But for a social business, they have a dual mission, that they don't only have to make their enterprise sustainable as generating some economic value, but at the same time, it must solve some social problems. So it has to have a social value. So you have a dual mission, a social value, enhancing some social value of your operations and increasing the economic value of your operations. And how do you balance those two? So what kind of strategies you can have so to take care of this duality of mission? This is the third challenge you have. And of course, the fourth challenge for which we are all here to talk is lack of proper business strategy. There is a lack of proper business strategies leading to non-competitive products. Given the focus largely remains on social needs that to some extent impedes the development of the actual product or service offered by the social enterprise. Because you are just fighting the battle of day-to-day sustenance, surviving, and passionately trying to find out the solution of the problems and dealing with the community, you don't have time to actually prepare a proper business strategy. So how social enterprises can look at a proper business strategy? So these are the four challenges we are going to look into, and some incidental issues connected with this in this session. So all these challenges, if we summarize, you might have heard of this term triple bottom line. Generally, all the businesses have only one bottom line, that is profit or loss, they know. But here you have triple bottom line. First is the people. the human impact of your business and your ability to affect social change, improve lives, and develop a community in a sustainable way. This is one of your biggest challenge. That's why you are passionate about entering this social enterprise business. So the first is that the people with whom you are dealing with, some something you are contributing in improving their livelihood. So first bottom line is people. Second is planet. Because you are environmental conscious, you would not do or you will not indulge into a project which will destroy the environment. So you will have to also look at, and you look at environmental impact. And third is profit. If you are not generating enough money to sustain your business, at some point of time funding may dry up and your whole enterprise will collapse. So social enterprises also have to make some money in order to sustain themselves, pay workers, and grow as an enterprise. So there is a triple challenge for a social enterprise. So you have your strategies should be in a manner that you help people whom you want to help. You don't damage the environment. In fact, you contribute to sustainable development. And of course, you earn enough money for profit. Now, when we are planning the strategy, we have to look at the structure, because in strategy, structure and strategy, they go hand in hand. The kind of organization structure you have, and if your strategy is not matching with the structure, even if it is one of the best strategies, it will collapse. Again, I will give an example from the airline business. Let us look at Kingfisher and Jet Airways. They are very interesting examples. Now, Air India, where I worked for 30 years, was a government-owned airline. The biggest advantage of government-owned airline is the owner is super rich. It means there is not a shortage of fund anytime if government has its priority and they are making provisions for the budget. So even if you are making losses, because government thinks that this airline business is a very important business, and if you move out of that business, the other airlines may create a monopolistic situation in the market and exploit the market. So government will have to be there in that business, and that's why so far we have a government airline called Air India. So, but the structure of that government airline will be bureaucratic. And if you are very enthusiastic and developing a strategy where you are not taking into account this bureaucratic structure of the organization, then there is possibility that that strategy will not succeed. Because if you say that we have to increase the number of planes by say 50, and to make it viable and to service your debt which you have already taken, and the only way is either downsize your airline and pay the debt, or you increase the turnover by increasing number of routes and number of aircraft to take care of your bottom line. At some point of time, you start making profit. But if you don't take into account the government structure where if you want to order some planes, it will go into a committee to study the routes and your proposals, and it will come out with proposal in 3 years time. By that time, those routes might have been taken over by private airlines, and those routes may not be sustainable. So any strategy which you are planning, it has to look at the structure of the organization for which you are preparing the strategy. Now, if you look at Kingfisher, they started with a strategy of servicing the customer, going all out to service their customer. The owner of the airline was staring at you from the seat and promising you the moon and trying to give you a customer experience which you never thought of. But in the over enthusiasm of reaching out to customer one to one, you invested a lot in the cabin entertainment system heavily, which was very, very expensive. And it simply changed the dynamics of your game. And then again, you wanted to expand and wanted to become a airline bigger than Air India. You took over another airline and their culture was very different than your culture. And the weight of the new airline collapsed Kingfisher because you could not give. So it was Kingfisher and Kingfisher Light. And Kingfisher Light was like any rundown airline, and Kingfisher, there you are promising the moon, and the customer could not differentiate between Kingfisher and Kingfisher Light. So the structure is very, very important. The third airline, Jet Airways, again, which collapsed. That collapsed because they entered into an alliance with Emirates. They needed money to expand and grow because competition was tough. So they thought that if they tie up with Emirates, they will have a huge source of fund available to them. But Emirates converted Jet Airways into a feeder airline, that all the flights from India were going to Dubai, and they were filling Emirates airline aircraft and sending them all over the world. So the Jet Airways, which was expanding nicely with good international routes, a good reputation, suddenly in 2-3 years time became a feeder airline for Emirates, and that they could not foresee. And again, there was a disruption in structure and strategy, and that airline collapsed, though it was a very good airline. So these three examples give you a good insight into the importance of understanding the structure and what kind of strategy you will be implementing in a social business. So let us look at the structure of some of the social businesses. So generally, a non-profit, that is NGO, non-government organization, a tax-exempt non-business entity that invests excess funds back into the mission. And we have seen many businesses in social enterprises are operating like NGOs. So this is one structure. But today, if we look at the structure of NGO, Home Ministry has come down very heavily. The sources of, because many people have used NGOs for anti-national activities, creating agitations where there was no need, and it became a kind of conduit for money laundering. So the NGO platform was misused by many people in the country. And today NGOs are in a very tight spot. And for them, funding from abroad is nearly dried up. And they have to survive on funding available within the country. So this is a structure now that is available to social enterprise. So this is one structure. Second is cooperative, a business organized by and for its members. And we know Amul as the finest example of such a structure, and it is really a benchmark for any social enterprises, that how you can grow and become successful in social business. But unfortunately, this model has not been exploited very well in our country. There are cooperative banks, but if you look at cooperative banks, there are only 3 states where you have cooperative banks. Many cooperative banks are there in Maharashtra, some are there in Karnataka, and some are there in Gujarat. Out of 28-29 states in the country, only 3 states have robust cooperative banking system. But we have seen many cooperative banks now collapsing, and Reserve Bank of India has now started regulating these cooperative banks. And they are also now promising that a deposit up to 5 lakh rupees in a cooperative bank is safe. But this is a structure which is available for social business. So we have cooperative banks and we have an example of Amul. But if you look at Sweden, Denmark, those areas, or some of the countries in Europe, they have cooperatives, say, even for electricity consumption. So there are cooperatives of a society or a community. They form a cooperative and they decide from which source they will buy the electricity. Now in Mumbai, say, we have Adani Power now and Tata Power. So you can form a cooperative of consumers of electricity, and then you can actually decide at what rate you will be buying. So you will be supplying the product to the community. So this is an example, and there are many ways of having a cooperative. Cooperatives can be there in vegetable market, mandis. So this is a successful structure, but you have to have a good strategy to sustain. The third structure is social purpose business. And this is based on addressing a social mission. This social purpose business, it could be that it is following a normal structure of a business. Like maybe normally registered as a company or as a private limited company or within the regulatory framework of the country. But the purpose of business is socially oriented. So you can define such structure as social business. So there is accountability, there is transparency, but they are addressing a particular social mission. That's why they are not categorized as a normal business, but categorized as a social business, social mission they are fulfilling. Similarly, the fourth is social firm. Social firms employ those in the community who need jobs. And the biggest thing is, say, example is Mahatma Gandhi Narega scheme. That is also a kind of social business where government is putting money for people who have no jobs. So they create jobs and they distribute money based on per dime, per day labor. But the similar structure can also be used by social entrepreneurs to provide jobs in a given area where there is a lack of jobs. So this is also a structure available. Then socially responsible business. These are normal companies. Maybe it is mandatory now to contribute 2% for CSR, but there are many companies who contribute much more than 2% of their profit, and they really have some social missions. And if you look around, you will find many such examples in our country, because social service is always inculcated in our social values. We have seen since ages that even earlier eras, people who had money, they used to build ghats near the river, or they will build dharmashalas near the temples. So there were social responsible business, and those dharmashalas, those ghats, sometimes were funded and sometimes they are operated on a low margin. So this is also an structure for social business, social enterprise. And of course, for profit. Of course, this is a vaguest category because there are economic value driven businesses, but you will find social businesses also whose motive is to earn profit, but they are solving a social problem. And when you look around, that Akshay Kumar's movie was there, where a successful businessman is producing cheap product, but quality product. So there can be businesses. So we have this kind of structures. Once we know the structure of an organization, then we have to match the strategy. So in general, I explained to you these structures, or when you are looking at the strategy, you will have to look at these structures very, very carefully. So now we come to the funding challenge. So what is the most popular method of funding a social enterprise? And the most popular is crowdfunding. What is crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is that you know that you want to do this particular business. Okay, before we go into funding, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. Do we have any questions here? Hello. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box, and we will look at those questions. Or you can unmute yourself, or Pranjal, you can raise your hand, and Pranjal will unmute you and you can ask a question.
Sir, can I ask one question?
Yes, yes.
Sir, how does we differentiate for-profit and socially responsible business? Like, what is the difference between like for-profit and socially responsible business, sir, in this structure?
For profit is a very regular business, like Tata Motors. They are manufacturing cars for profit. We have Vodafone company. They are there in business for profit. So all the businesses in a regular economy, they are there only for profit, and all their strategies are designed to reduce the cost and increase the surplus revenue which they have. So they always talk about increasing the top line, that is increasing the revenue, and reducing the cost so that their bottom line improves. So this is for profit. So all the strategies purely focus on increasing the profit.
Sir, sorry, sir, sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sir, since sir, we are talking about in the context of social entrepreneurship, sir. So,
Yeah.
Like the for-profit social enterprise, how they are different from socially responsible business, sir. Like so.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that those companies who are totally for profit, but they still donate funds, raise awareness, and support causes. So there are companies who totally working for profit, but like if you go to say Jain Irrigation, I don't know how many of you have gone to say Jain Irrigation in Jalgaon. Jain Irrigation is for profit, isn't it? But the kind of work which they are doing, setting up schools, colleges, academic institutions, supporting moving hospitals. So even though the business is for total profit, but they donate liberally for social causes. So even though they are for profit, but they are working very closely for improving or solving some social problems. So these are for profit. But socially responsible businesses, say if we talk about Adani Green, which is now in the news because some French company has invested 2.5 billion dollars or euros in that business. So that is a social responsible business because they are setting up a target of green power, where they want to increase the sustainability of the environment and want to reduce the dependence on coal and such products which devastate the environment. So socially responsible business is like Adani Green, where you are investing money in a business which is a green business. So as a strategy, there are businesses which are green businesses. If you look at Mumbai Airport, that is Santa Cruz Airport, there is a hotel by Kamath, which is totally eco-friendly. So they don't use plastic, and that hotel is in existence for last maybe 25 years. So that is a socially responsible business, that they will not use plastic. Now, Prime Minister Modi is talking about banning the single-use plastic. But there were businesses who were socially responsible, and even in the normal for-profit businesses, they used those kind of models. So in the structure, we have these various structures. Yeah. Any other question?
So there are 2-3 questions in chat box.
Okay.
From Mr. Prakash Nair, there is a question. What are some modern types of social enterprises?
So I gave you an example of Adani Green, no? Adani Green, which already has 25 gigawatt of solar power. Prime Minister Modi has talked about a solar alliance, and you want to increase dependency on oil and coal. So they are socially responsible businesses. So they are social businesses because you have to operate, and they rely heavily on government subsidies. So the social responsible businesses, for their funding, they depend on subsidies and various grants. So this is one example. I also gave you example of Jain irrigation, where like in Israel, where there is water shortage, they use sprinklers for putting water in their fields. So this Jain irrigation's main business is designing sprinklers and selling sprinklers for farmers, and which has created a agriculture revolution in the country. So these are socially responsible businesses. Yeah. Another question?
Yeah, that's another question is from Professor Ramesh Kumar. What further changes could our organizations make to the organization structure to be more supportive of enterprise and innovation?
For a social enterprise, I will currently focus on social enterprise. Social enterprise, when like Adani Green or a Jain irrigation, where there is a social problem, but they want to have a business, they adopt a normal business structure. But when we talk about 2 million social businesses, most of them are in the NGO sector. And they have that kind of charity or trust or Section 8 company where they operate. And they should know that they cannot take any money from those businesses for personal use. If you take money for personal use, then there is a problem. In non-profit, if you look at in NGOs, people spend nearly 40 to 50% on employee cost, on administrative cost. This is the biggest problem in such a structure. You look at any balance sheet or income and expenditure sheet of these NGOs, many successful NGOs which you see in India, they have nearly 50% administrative expenses, and only 50% money goes into problem solving. So this is a very big issue. If you are using 50% for your administrative expenses, it means on salaries, travel, staying in hotel, buying a 25 lakh rupees car out of the money given for NGO. So that is a misuse. So even though you are serving a social cause, but you are using a non-profit to upgrade your lifestyle, that is also not good. So now government has come out with a stringent requirement that you cannot have more than 15% money collected for a purpose for administrative expenses. So there are the regulatory environment. So these are all various structures which you have to have in mind when you are doing social business.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, one more question is there from Professor Lakshmi Priya. Sir, social enterprise start with social mission and social innovation. But how do we overcome the challenges of continuous innovation, funding strategies, or human resource strategies especially those which are not into a for-profit business?
You have to overcome challenges, because once you have decided to be in a social enterprise sector, you have to have a lot of patience. One person I know, he was working with NSE, National Stock Exchange. He was a computer programmer, and he was having a very good lifestyle, air conditioned office, and very good supported life. One fine day, he thought that I should upgrade my education. So after 7-8 years working in National Stock Exchange, he decided to do his master's degree. So he started looking for his master's degree, and fortunately or unfortunately for him, he got into master's degree of TISS in the social enterprise section. He did his master's degree. After first year, he got involved into a project where they were talking about a product where you can do fish farming in a tank. Now, this is a real business concept, that you can do fish farming in a tank. For that, you have to maintain the oxygen level in the tank, you have to change the water, and you can import such tanks from abroad, but they are very, very expensive. And once you import them, then they are no more economically viable, because the fish being produced from those tanks will not be able to get you your money which you have invested. I have been meeting him for last 6 years since he completed his master's degree in social sciences from TISS. His wife is working, so his family is running smoothly. But last 6 years, he is continuously trying to innovate the product, trying to make this economically viable. He is, as an experiment, he has opened his R&D center in a slum, because he says that I cannot afford the money to have my R&D center in a normal locality. So though he stays in a very good society in Thane, whole day he stays in a slum where he has set up his R&D facility and innovation. Now last 2 years he is getting some funding from Atal innovation policy, and his life is becoming a little comfortable, but he is still working on that. Lot of products, small products, which he is trying to substitute, import substitute. He has to design and see that it is economically viable. So you have to invest money in R&D and innovation. I have seen that person struggling, but he is passionate. He says that I am going to make this fish tank economically viable, and once it becomes economically viable, people will be able to have fish farming in their very small area in a tank. At least they will be able to meet their own requirement of their family and community at a very, very affordable price. So these are the issues which are that come with passion and innovation. So I hope that answers your question.
Sir, one more question. Since you have worked in the airline industry,
Mhm.
sir, can we consider the example of Deccan Air as a social enterprise?
Yeah, when it started, Captain Gopinath said that you can come and fly, come to the airport in a chappal and fly. And that is what took Kingfisher along with it. So as long as Deccan was working with Captain Gopinath with that kind of passion and innovation, no kind of videos on every seat. You come and there is no staff. So that was a very economically viable model. So Deccan Airline was actually brought revolution in the field of aviation in our country, and for 4, 5, 6 years, it ran successfully. But where it went down, and he had to sell the airline to Vijay Mallya. Captain Gopinath became very ambitious. As long as he was flying it as a low cost airline, point to point service, he was doing very well. But when he became ambitious, he gave an order of aircraft, and he said, I will take one aircraft per month delivery, and I will expand my business, scaling up. that issue of scaling up your social enterprise business. And in that zeal of buying one aircraft every month, he got carried away by that idea. And by the time 12th, 13th, 14th aircraft came, he had no leverage to fund those aircraft. And he had to sell the whole airline at peanuts to Kingfisher. And Vijay Mallya happily bought the whole airline at 25% of the replacement value of aircraft and thought that he has got a bargain. But the culture of Deccan Airline and culture of Kingfisher was entirely different. So that social enterprise business of aviation merged with profit motive and very, very enthusiastic businessmen. So both of them drowned, not drowned, sink, or what you say in crash landing. So that's what happened. So once you are having a social enterprise, you have to remain focused on that and don't become very ambitious. Make it sustainable, let it survive for 10, 15 years, and then you try to expand. Yes, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Sir, is there a possibility like we can have a Air Deccan type of model in public sector unit like Air India, sir? A
You are
small,
asking a
small
question.
ventures or something special vehicle, sir?
You are asking a question which I had already recommended in the turnaround plan of which I was part. We came
Right.
out with a concept called grasshopper. You know what is grasshopper? It has a very limited range of flying distance, a kind of jump, isn't it? It cannot fly, but it can go fly up to a certain distance. So we submitted in the turnaround plan a proposal. We have Alliance Air, you know, if you are familiar with the airline business in the country.
Right, right, sir.
So I said, our team told the government that we should convert Alliance Air into a Air India Grasshopper airline. That is up to 300 to 400 kilometer distance, this Grasshopper airline with turbofan operated aircraft. They can fly and have passengers at a very low cost. So you can have a 70-seater plane with turboprop engines, and you can fly at a very low cost. So if you are if you know a little bit about aviation, jet engine is expensive to operate and it is good to fly at longer distance because you have to assume an altitude of 30,000 feet with jet engine and you will fly. But because dust and all is an enemy to the jet engine, so they have to land at a proper runway. But turboprop engine can land even on an agriculture field. So if you just surround an area with barbed wire and have some security, daytime this turboprop operated aircraft can land even in some makeshift runways, and you can pick up passengers and go. So there is no landing or landing cost or something, it will be safe. So we suggested that to promote aviation business, we should adopt this grasshopper business. But as you know, I told you that structure and strategy should match. So that strategy did not match with the bureaucratic structure of the airline and finance ministry and civil aviation ministry. So you don't see grasshopper. Otherwise, if that strategy, I am still pressing. The current managing director of Alliance Air is a good friend of mine, and I am telling her that why don't you use this grasshopper strategy?
So there are very promising, like this strategy has very promising thing actually. Like in case they implement it, then definitely aviation industry will change actually. Like.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Next question.
No, so sir, there is no question in chat box.
Okay, so we can move on to the next topic. So the next topic is funding, which I was talking about. Crowdfunding is very popular. What is crowdfunding is that initially you put your own money in the business. And when that money is over, you start borrowing from your parents, your wife's bank account, your brother, sister's bank account. And when that money also you have spent, then you start looking at your friends, you start borrowing from them. And then if that money is also exhausted, you start looking at your well-wishers, or wherever people know you, you are a good man, so you go and ask them for money. This in simple words is crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is a popular method. Most of the social enterprise business, they start with crowdfunding. I know of a friend, and many of you might have seen him on TV debating with Arnab, and even sometimes on Times Now on other channels, Rajdeep Sardesai. I will not name him, but he wanted to publish a book on some issue of social business, something related to that. And he sent his book to many publishers for publication, and they said that this book has no taker and we will not publish this book. So he got psyched and he said, okay, I will publish my own book by crowdfunding. So he wrote to all his friends, relatives and well-wishers and sympathizers and whatnot, and say that pre-publication book offer of 100 rupees given to you. You pay me 100 rupees. This is the book about. And as soon as I receive the money, within 3 months time, you will get a good quality book on this subject. You will be surprised to know that he had more than 20,000 people paying him 100 rupees, and he distributed 20,000 copies at the launch itself. And then later on, he sold many more copies with the same crowdfunding, and he got enthusiastic, and later on he published another 2 books with crowdfunding on the similar subject. So crowdfunding is a very popular method, and but here you put your prestige and reputation on stake, and you have to be very transparent and a person who can be trusted. So crowdfunding is a popular method. The second method of funding for social business is grants. There are many schemes in government where you can get money and you can set up social enterprise with some specific requirements. And especially in last 3-4 years after Modi government has got hold of the situation after Mudra loan and all that, now they have come out with various schemes where you can get some business funded. They don't even ask about what is the business, and they give you money, 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees, and that is good enough to start a social enterprise. So anyone who has some idea can borrow now money in the form of some grant from these government schemes, and you can start a social business. 4-5 years back, it was very difficult to do any innovative work in social business, but now it is, and that is what is going to change the profile of our country. And if Prime Minister Modi is thinking about making it a $5 trillion economy, these kind of policies are going to really change the face of our nation. And the third is impact investing, where the return on investment expected isn't just financial, but includes social and environmental impact as well. So here, the funding requirements are attached with some reducing some environmental effect. If you look at, say, diesel engines or petrol engines, where you want to reduce CO2 and CO emission or sulfur gas emission, so you have to follow certain procedures, and for that you create a social business, social enterprise, and then you invest in R&D. So this is impact investing, where the impact is clearly visible. If you look at the air pollution in our country, especially during winter in Delhi, air pollution is a big issue. And this paddy being burned by farmers, which has become a very big issue currently, which is farmer agitation, which is on. And one of the biggest contributing factor and trigger for this farmers agitation was that ban on paddy burning, which was a general scheme for farmers as a traditional method. But because it affects your air pollution, so there was ban or some fine on that. But if somebody can actually find out a product or a method to reduce this air pollution, and even and you can burn those leftover from the crop after you have cut it, So these are the issues. So this is impact investing. So if you can work on some R&D, some product, some method, some process, so funds will be available to you. So this is impact investing. So these are three popular method of funding I have explained. Any question on this funding? No question? Thank you. So it's very clear. I hope you can use your reputation to have crowdfunding. This is the cheapest method and there is no return assured. Only thing your parents and your brothers and your friends will move away after once they see you that again paisa mangne aa gaya. But otherwise crowdfunding is the best method. The second strategic issue is marketing. Now, marketing in a management institution, when we talk about there's a branding and 4 P's of marketing and today 7 P's of marketing. So marketing is a big business. But how you can use marketing as a strategy for social enterprises? So the first difference in the normal marketing approach and the social enterprise marketing approach is that you don't market your product or your business, but you market your mission. That is what you want to achieve. This is what problem you want to solve. Until unless you market your mission, you will not be successful in marketing your business. So the basic difference, generally people are not aware of the vision and mission. You know, if you go to any company's website and they write a very big vision and mission statement on the first page of every company, but you ask any employee in those companies, they will also not be able to recite a vision and mission statement. And if you don't believe me, just go and ask any of your friend working in any company and ask that person what is the vision statement of your company, and I am sure he won't be able to say 3 words of that vision statement. Whereas in social enterprise, your vision and mission statement is the first marketing tool for your social enterprise, because that is what is going to get customers for your product. Because you are solving a problem, a social issue, and those who will get attracted that yes, this person is working on this mission, so they will buy your product. Again, I will give an example from my institute, Vivekananda Education Society Institute of Management. Every year we have a sell on as an activity based teaching. We are very fond of activity based teaching. And you know, people in management institutes come from all the backgrounds. They are engineers, they are BCom, they are BA, whatever they have done, BBA, BMM, BFM, or BA in psychology or social sciences, whatever. So they all come from different backgrounds, and they want to learn management techniques and want to do MBA. But they don't know the market. They don't know how to sell. And a business is nothing but selling a product or a process or a service. So what we do as a activity-based learning, in the first week of induction program, we have a sell on activity for 1 week, where we make a group of 2 to 3 students. We buy product from social enterprises in bulk worth 8 to 10 lakh rupees. Listen carefully. This is very, very interesting. And if you can do this experiment wherever you are, you will contribute a lot in supporting those social enterprises, because 8 to 10 lakh rupees worth of goods, if you are lifting from a social business and you are able to sell them and give them money, they will be able to sustain at least 6 to 8 months next year in their businesses. So we pick up those products, 6 to 8 lakh rupees worth of product, and give it to our students. We have 360 students intake in our PGDM and MMS program of Mumbai University. So these 360 students, roughly a group of 150 to 180, they move around with those products which we have purchased from these social enterprise businesses, and they go about selling. The first lesson you have to learn in any business management is how to sell a product or service. If you cannot sell a product, you cannot be a manager at all. You have to, so they come out with their experiences, how they were able to sell product. So when you are selling a product which has come from a kind of, say, deaf and dumb school, or some remote area in some village. So when you want to sell the product, if you say you buy this purse from me, they will say, why should I buy a purse from you? I can buy a purse from a very good shop. But if you say that I am selling this purse which is made by deaf and dumb people. I think Adip Mohapatra is unmuted. Please mute him. Yeah. So they say that in their experience of selling, that when they start selling like this, that we have got these products from a deaf and dumb school, and they have made this person, they say, oh, it's beautiful, I must buy it, because you are appealing to their goodness, and they buy the product. So in social enterprises, you have to not only market your product or business, but you have to market your mission. This is a best strategy for selling your product. The second marketing strategy is content marketing. You have to create a lot of videos, blogs, social media awareness about the activity which you are doing. Again, promoting your mission and what you are doing. So social enterprise can leverage content to share real stories of the impact they are making and provide proof that every customer's purchase helped to do some good in the world. You know, all of us, how much bad we are, but we have something good in us and we want to help and contribute to the society. So when you appeal by your content to this basic goodness which is lying in everyone, the possibility of selling those products and services is very, very high. So this is a very, very successful strategy of social enterprises, is that content marketing. You have to invest some money in creating content. If you don't have content, then it will be difficult to sell your mission and your business. The third is event marketing. What is event marketing? You don't have to do any events, but say there is in Mumbai, there is a Mumbai Marathon organized by Standard Chartered Bank. I don't know which bank is nowadays organizing. And they will tie up with various NGOs and social businesses to promote them free of cost. They get sponsors who will promote these social businesses, and they get a good publicity, and later on they can go to those corporates and sell their products. So this event marketing, by aligning with some events for fundraising and other initiatives, social enterprises can partner with or sponsor the causes that relate to their mission. So this is a very, very successful event marketing strategy for selling their products. And your own website. It helps a lot if you have your own website. But even if you don't have your own website, nowadays various Amazon or Flipkart also have various sections where products made by such social enterprises are sold at a different promotional cost. So you can tie up with them. So best will be to have your own website where people, you can always say that please visit our website. So where you can give them a lot of information about your vision, mission, your products, and social impact which you are making. And people will go there and they simply will buy the product. You hope so. So these are there are various marketing strategies, but I thought that these four strategies, they actually work very well in the beginning. And as you grow in size, for Amul, now Amul does not need this kind of thing. They are already a big brand name. So for them, a regular business strategy would suffice. But for those 2 million social businesses who are still struggling and scaling up, these are the 4 marketing strategies they should look at. Any question on funding and marketing? No question?
Sir, that salon activity is a very nice initiative by Vivekananda Institute. So can you tell us a little bit more about like what sort of like do you target the social these products from the Mumbai area itself or from Maharashtra or from any part of the country, sir? Like
Currently we are selling products. There is an organization called Seva Sahyog. They are our partners, and Seva Sahyog has more than 100 social enterprises with whom they connect, and they raise fund for them.
so
So Seva Sahyog comes to us that this particular organization needs a big help, and why don't you sell product of this particular social business this year? So
Sure.
based on their recommendation, and then what we have is a student committee, a senior student committee, because this salon activity is done by first year students.
Right.
But there are second year students who have already done this and they know tricks of selling.
Sure.
So we make a senior team, which along with the junior students team, they select the product, and this senior team does hand holding.
So
So they act as consultant of these junior students in selling the product. And actually after this 7 days, they don't need MBA degree. If they are courageous enough, they can have their own business. If they can sell this product, they can sell any product.
right, right.
You will be happy to know that this salon activity as an activity learning got the second prize all India level in IIM Bangalore, some program year back. So this is really a very, very innovative thing which we are doing in VC.
It's a value-added learning, sir. It's a very nice initiative.
Yeah. Please, if you're liking it, do it in your institutions. There is no consultancy.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
So the next we are coming to is scaling. Now this is a tough thing, how to scale your social enterprises. Initially, I will talk about these 5 scaling strategies. These are growth strategies for any businesses. One is a hybrid of branching and affiliation that permits scaling at a faster rate and a lower cost while maintaining control over quality and the brand. So you have to have branches and you have to have affiliation. This is the best technique for social businesses to begin with when you want to scale up. Say you have a reach in 2-3 villages and you want to reach 50 villages. So you have to, if you have enough fund, you can open a branch there, and or you can affiliate with business. There may be some kirana shop or some medical shop based on your product, or some shop which can sell your kind of product which you have, and they start keeping your product. You know, Ramdev Baba became such a big man, but initially he used these techniques of branching and affiliation for selling his product. Now he has his own stores. Even at Delhi airport, I have seen Patanjali's store. But initially, 15 years back, he used the same hybrid of branching and affiliation, where he started selling his product and he started giving tough competition to Hindustan Unilever and Colgate by selling those Dant Kanti and various products. So for a social enterprise, the very successful scaling up or growth strategy is branching and affiliation. Your cost is low and your product is in your control. The second is mergers and acquisitions. So when you become like Patanjali, they have acquired some company in Indore area, isn't it? Some of you will know. At a very low cost, some 3,000 crore or something, they bought a company which is some 15,000-20,000 crore worth, because that company was in debt, and in restructure in NCLT, they got that company. And that company has huge assets and capacity. And Ramdev Baba was looking for a huge capacity. Nutrela and all those products are there of that company. So now Patanjali, by mergers and acquisitions, has really become a very big brand name. So social businesses, initially when you do this branching and affiliation, and when you are doing it successfully, you can go on strategy of mergers and acquisitions. The third is strategic alliances and joint ventures. You can tie up with a large company if you are not able to generate enough funds. So you can have a joint venture, 50-50, 60-40, whatever comes. Your advisors advise you. So that is another way of scaling up. I was traveling on this Konkan belt and I was in Ratnagiri some time back. In Ratnagiri, there is a very big establishment which makes pulp of fish meat, because you cannot store fish for a long time. So it's a huge facility in Ratnagiri, and they make pulp of fish and put that in the can and they export in a very big way. And but the supply of fish they get right from Kanyakumari to Kutch. So they have joint ventures and strategic alliances with lots of fishermen unions, communities, caste groups, all kinds of society groups, community groups, and they have strategic alliances with them. And when they go out to fish, they say that all your fish catching, you sell it to us. So they get huge tons of fish every day through these strategic alliances and joint ventures, and they are a very big business. So in social enterprises, so why I am calling that business a social enterprise? Because they are providing market to fishermen who have no market available to them. And if there is no market available, this is a big social issue that how do they survive? Now, because of this big manufacturing fish pulp unit in Ratnagiri, there is no fisherman who will go out and will think that whether his fish will be sold in the market or not. Whatever is sold in the market is fine, but remaining he can sell it to this establishment. So strategic alliances and joint ventures. By the way, I am giving example of fish, but I don't eat fish. But still, you have to be aware of businesses around. So strategic alliances and joint ventures. The fourth part is licensing your product. If you have made a very good product at a very low cost, it will make sense that if you want to scale up, charge a licensing fees and share your manufacturing formula or whatever it is and license your product. And this will help in a big way in setting up some social businesses in the agricultural sector. These three formulas, which have become the bone of contention currently in the country, and 9th round of talk was held today. What it is trying to do is unleash the potential of farmers by currently in the APMC, they can simply go and sell their product and make some money, and the rest of the thing is done by artis and brokers and agents, and they are the ones who are making money and farmers are committing suicide. But if you really carefully study these three formulas, it gives a lot of scope for innovation of products and processes, and it can really make a revolution. My estimate is that if these three formulas come into play in next 2 to 3 years time, they will be able to generate at least $1 to $2 trillion in GDP for our country simply by putting all the resources in proper place and good use of resources. So currently, if our economy is $2.7 trillion, simply if these formulas are kicked in and farmers actually start utilizing these provisions and start using social business model, our country's GDP will grow to $4 to $4.5 trillion simply because of these three formulas. Such a revolutionary step it is. But people at the ground level will have to understand and implement it. That is what is required. So licensing your product. So you can license like Basmati. Basmati rice is a licensing of a product. If you want to use the brand name of Basmati, organic food industry. It's a very big industry. So these are all social businesses. They are solving problems of farmers. So if I would classify them in the social enterprise. And then R&D for new product. I have already given you example of a friend who is trying to make a fish tank where he can grow fish and sell them in the market in local communities. So you have to do a lot of R&D. If you go to Konkan areas, there are a lot of fruits, vegetables, which are there specific, they come in a specific season. So you have to have kokum juice. Now, if you have a kokum juice, I don't know how many people from all India, they know about kokum juice. But kokum juice, if product developed properly, it can give shoulder to shoulder competition to Thumbs Up and Pepsi and Coca-Cola. And this will be a healthy drink with the better taste. But you need to do a lot of R&D in these areas. So once this R&D, currently this kokum, whatever is sold and rest gets destroyed. And it does not add anything to the economy nor to the well-being of farmers or the local communities. So for scaling, I would say that these are the 5 common strategies you can use. Any question on this? So now I come to the final part of my presentation. It is 3:18 and only 12 minutes left for my session to get over. So I will sum up. So 7 steps you should not forget. If you are trying to make a strategy for a social enterprise, write a mission statement. You should know, the first slide of my presentation is you should know what you are doing. And that what you are doing should be very well reflected in the mission statement. So write a mission statement first. Think about it. Even if you take 15 days, 1 month to really write what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and how you want to achieve. So that will make your vision and mission statement. Second is research the field. If you don't do research, all your enthusiasm and passion will go away in 2-3 years' time. You have to understand the consumer, you have to understand the social problem which you are trying to solve, and find out what work people have done already, and if they have failed, why they have failed, if they have succeeded, why they have succeeded. You have to do a lot of research when you are in the social business, which people don't do that. That's why I'm putting specifically these points. The third is conceptualize your unique offering. You have to create a conceptual framework of your effort, that what is it in 2 words you are doing. Once you can put, there are many Sanskrit shlokas which Satyameva Jayate. When you say Satyameva Jayate, it conveys the whole culture and values of a society. So like that, you have to conceptualize your unique offering, what you are doing, and then put them in very few words, which will help you in marketing your business and product or service. The fourth part is reach out to others for feedback and support. If you think you are one-man army in social business, it's very, very difficult to function like a one-man army. As for crowdfunding, you have to reach out to others for getting funding. But at the same time, not only for funding, you reach out to them, but you have to reach out to others for feedback and support. If you need support, don't hesitate to ask for support from a government agency or from another NGO, from your colleagues, your friend, your mentor, whoever that person is. The fifth point is develop your business model. You should know, as I gave you example about a customer process, right from the first phone call to the person getting out of the airport. So there's a business model of customer service in an airline, or for maintaining your aircraft fleet. The moment the first aircraft lands in your airline, and till such time you retire that aircraft from the fleet, you have to have a complete maintenance strategy for that particular aircraft, because if aircraft is grounded, you cannot sell a seat. So you have to develop your business model, what kind of business model you have. So right from first contact to the social problem to solving the problem, you have to have your business model. The next point is identify initial funding sources. Just don't burden your parents and friends and well-wishers. There are various funding agencies which are available, and internet is there to help you. So identifying initial funding sources. And finally, write an action plan and stick to it. This is what you are going to do, and write a diary. Every day you should write a diary that this was what I decided and this is what I achieved and why I could not achieve. So if you write a diary, write an action plan for every day, there is a possibility that you will succeed and create a very good social enterprise. So for conclusions, true social entrepreneurs scale their ventures in order to maximize the reach of their mission. On the first day when we started this FDP, I said that the replicability of your model is the most crucial aspect of social enterprise. Like Amul, if you can replicate a model, like a cooperative bank, if you can replicate a model. So until unless you can replicate a model, you cannot reach to all the sections of the society which needs your help. So the true social entrepreneurs scale their ventures in order to maximize the reach of their mission. Then there are challenges to growth that must be faced. However, there are also strategies that can help social entrepreneurs to overcome these challenges, which I have talked about. Once you have succeeded and your model is established, then you have to scale up. And there will be challenges of growth which you'll have to face. But I have already told you 5 strategies which you can use for scaling up. And prepare for growth, but be aware of risks. The odds are against you because you are not only working for profit, you are also working for people and planet. So you have not only one burden, but you have 3 targets to achieve. So the odds are against you, but if you are passionate enough, you can have a successful social business organization and you can also grow. There are various examples. If you go on internet, you will find at least more than 100 successful social enterprises running in this country with turnover of more than 500,000 crores. Khadi and Gramodyog of Government of India is nothing but a social enterprise, unlike Amul, which is a government agency. But the kind of work it is doing for Khadi is tremendous. Finally, you know, in Bhagavad Gita, after the whole Bhagavad Gita is over, Krishna says, okay, finally you again listen to the whole conclusion. So I am big fan of Bhagavad Gita. So this is the last slide. After there will be no more second final. It is final. So after conclusions, there's the final points. Be future oriented. What you are going to achieve in next 3 months, next 6 months, next 1 year, next 10 years. It should be very clear in your mind. This is what I am trying to do. This is the social problem which I am trying to solve. And this is what I can do today. But with proper strategies, how I am going to scale up and how I am going to help more and more people. That is what you have to be future oriented. Be impact oriented. It does not help that you are just doing something. It has to have a substantial impact on the problem. If you are creating additional problems in the community or society, then it is good that you stop the business, social enterprise, even if it is. So be impact oriented. See that it really helps people and you have to continuously do your impact studies of your venture. Build on your values, strengths, and competencies. This is a very, very important line. You have certain values in life. You build on those values. Don't try to copy others. Build on your strength and focus on your core competencies. If you don't use these words, no strategy class is complete. So I have to use these words: values, strengths, and competencies. Then of course, pursue opportunities, you know, SWOT analysis people do. There is no threat here. So I am not using any threat, but I have used opportunities here because there are so many opportunities. Our country is faced with thousands of problems. Wherever you will look, you will find some problem. So pursue opportunities and set up some social enterprise. Deeply understand your clients and beneficiaries. If you don't understand them, then you will be doing disservice to them. I remember reading a book. There is a social entrepreneur in Bangalore area. He's a very good friend of mine. He was having a social enterprise in the village areas, and very enthusiastically he said that I will see that in this particular village there is a tap, water tap in every village home. Now this is a very, very important point, because you find people going to river or a well and fetching water, keeping on their head and then coming back to their home. He has written in a book, is an example which I heard from him also and I read from the book also. He said that after he successfully completed the project and he provided tap water to every home in that village, some 100 homes were there in that village. He went back to talk to those ladies who thought he has helped greatly. And many of them actually scolded him that you have made our life miserable. So he said, why, what happened? I solved your problem. They said, you know, this going to the river and fetching water was our time, me time. That is whole day I am working at home, taking care of people at home. By fetching water, all the ladies in the village were going together along with their friends, talking about their issues, their problems at home, and whatever general they want to talk. So that 1 hour of fetching water was their social time. And by bringing water to their home, you have actually done disservice. And he was really amazed. He said that I never thought that in this manner. So deeply understand your clients and beneficiaries. Take some time out to avoid burnout. Once you are in social business, you put your 24 hours and you burn out, and you burn out. When you go down, you don't only go down yourself, but you go down along with your family. In Mumbai, I came across a person who was Kamath. He was called Kachra Guru. He set up this social center, social entrepreneurship centers in Mumbai, 2-3 places. And he said that from Kachra, you can make gold. And he devoted his life. I have seen his end also. He died a very, very unsatisfied man. He had to face a lot of troubles from Bombay, Brihad Mumbai Municipal Corporation, about this, about people in the neighborhood that your kachra is smelling. And he never took time out to think that what he is doing, actually it is helping the society, or it is those who are stakeholders whom he is trying to help are actually unhappy with him. So he got burnt out and died a very, very dissatisfied man. Though he devoted all his life, he sacrificed a very good job in an MNC to work for the society, but he didn't take time out. So because he didn't take time out, he was burnt out. So take some time out to avoid burnout. Be flexible as time and tide changes. Now, many times when we are doing some good work, we get a dividend in the form of ego. Our ego gets boosted and we want praise from every section of society. This person is doing a very good work. But at some point of time, there will be critics. At some point of time, the work which you are doing, like the person who supplied tap water in every home, people were not happy with what he had done. So you have to be flexible in your approach. Take things as they come and understand and modify your approach, modify your model, but keep on working for the problems at hand. So be flexible as time and tide changes. And finally, make strategic thinking a mindset. This is very, very important. Strategic thinking is a long-term thinking. It is not short-term thinking. That is what differentiates from a short-term goal and a long-term goal. in a social enterprise, you have to always look at a long-term goal of your business, and based on that, you should act. I think with this, thank you for listening to me and asking some very, very critical and good questions. It is 3:32. My time is up. If any person who will not be able to sleep tonight, if he doesn't ask a question or she doesn't ask a question, can ask a question. Otherwise, Professor Nisha Pandey is smiling. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I must say that this was a really real example, lecture of real examples, and it can be applicable for anyone can start the business with the social mission. So I certainly, it's a thanks from my side for giving time for this FDP, but I would request from the participants to share thanks. Anyone can take lead and say thanks, because I can say thanks, but yes, you know, for me and for you, that's a difference, because I meet every day. So I will say some good things, but real thing come from you. So please, anyone can take lead and talk about.
Hello.
Yeah, yes.
Lenin Pant from Government Polytechnic, Nainital. Hello.
Yeah. You're audible. You're audible. Yeah.
Yeah. Lecture was so good, and I have to say here that if we go in a right way, as social entrepreneurship is a means a concept coming in light today, means it has propounded in a very recent years. So we can say if we go in a right way, we will have a 5 trillion economy on one hand, and on the other hand, we will be in a position to have to reach the concept of welfare society, as we are living in a democratic setup. So if we go with this concept in a good manner, naturally we will be there to say that we are living in a true democratic nation. I think so.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else can take lead?
I'm Prakash Nair here from Kerala.
Okay.
I hope I'm audible.
You're audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. As a past resident of society very near to your place, you know, I was also staying very near to Vivekananda School and College. This was at Shiva Srishti, if you're familiar with the place.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Shiva Srishti. I used to be staying there at New Life Housing Colony, and Vivekananda and Chembur Colony, and your Punjab Vaishnav Bhojan Shalas, and you know, the sweetmeat shop, all that, Basant Theatre, you know, all that was famous. And I had also students from your college staying at one of my flats in New Life, you know, and they were from Bihar and all that. They were doing the management there. You know, this was some time back, you know, around 15 years back. I moved to Kerala around 15 years back, you know, and it was excellent. You know, 2 days, very excellent speakers, and Satish Moth sir's session was beautiful. In fact, I've put in my chat also, you know, it was an excellent session. It took me back to those days, you know, of Air India Colony, and you know, I used to be in Express Towers, so Air India building also was
next
famous.
to Air India building.
Yeah, Mr. Dabolkar and Uttara Patel and all those people.
We'll connect some other time. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your
excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Sir, I wanted to take 1 second, if it is possible.
Yeah,
Dr. Mohd, next time, you know, you have to buy the product from Vaitadna for the students. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sure, we will do that.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. Now we will switch for other session.
Yeah.
With 5-minute break.
Yeah, ma'am. Next session starts at 3:45.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.